and we talked about this a little bit last time, training young athletes, and you were saying that a lot of people think that the more you do, the better. And that's just not the case. To give you a quick example, I do bodybuilding, and same with you, people that have been doing this, Dorian Yates, Dave Palumbo, these guys that I follow and listen to, less is more. So, and they say, especially if you're not using sports enhancements for sports or / bodybuilding, we know what those are. You need more time to recover if you're natural, which I am. So less volume, heavier weights, 3 to 4 times a week. That's what I do. You need more time to recover. It sounds like it's the same for what you're trying to do with your athletes.
So
not necessarily the days and stuff like that, but
yeah, this is potentially a huge topic, and you know, if I have a kid, an extremely important one, extremely important. So obviously, we're talking about 2 different aspects. So one side of the training volume conversation is sport preparation itself. It's the technical, tactical. The other side is what you're doing in the weight room or what you're doing on the track. You know, what you're doing to get faster, what you're doing to get stronger. For most young athletes, less is better from a strength and speed standpoint, in part because most of them don't eat really well, and their sleep isn't, throughout a 7-day cycle, their sleep isn't as good as some people think it is.
Yeah. Now,
from a technical, tactical standpoint, I'm going to say this so that, you know, your audience doesn't, you know, get too excited about what I'm about to say. I'm not a basketball skills coach. I'm not a wrestling skills coach, a baseball skills coach, a softball skills coach. What I understand is the way the body responds to training volume. And I have a pretty good understanding of biomechanically how the body learns how to move optimally. And I think inherently, if you're a parent or a coach, you know this. But honestly, you're allowing emotions to run amok. One of my biggest mantras is more isn't better, better is better. And that really is not a deniable argument. It doesn't mean that if you have a 7-year-old kid who aspires to be a basketball player, that he's not going to have to take thousands of shots. He is. What you have to remember is the brain remembers good and it remembers bad. Early on, there's going to be a lot of bad until you get better. But as you become a more seasoned athlete, there's less room for error. So you've heard this before. I mean, you're a bald eagle guy. Baseball's a huge sport over there. How many times have you heard a kid or his dad brag about taking 20,000 swings in the winter? I'm going to be brutally honest. That doesn't impress me at all, aside from the commitment and willingness to put the time in. That I respect a lot. But usually that's said in a very prideful way. And I would argue that kid would have gotten much better results by 5,000 really good swings. And that goes with any other sport. Don't tell me about how many hours you've been in the gym. Wrestling, it's a conversation in and of itself, because most wrestlers are calorie aware or calorie deprived. Like most wrestlers are not trying to bump weight classes. So the more they do, the more they need to eat just to be able to maintain, which becomes, an emotional challenge within itself. So one of the biggest pieces of advice that I would give most parents is, do not follow the masses, because here's the truth, and really pretty undeniable. The masses are not getting scholarships. The masses are not getting places on college rosters. They're not. what I mean, you might know the number better than me. It's like 1% of high school athletes move on to college, maybe 2%.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, well, for the NFL, I know that I think it's 2% of high school athletes play college football, and then 1% of those play in the NFL. And then like, it's less than that for making it past 3 years in the NFL. So it's very, very small.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. 2 and 1%. Are you kidding me? That's insane. There's millions of high school football players,
Yeah, so that in and of itself gives you every logical reason why to stop and think about everything you're doing to prepare your kid for success. And if the goal is just to be a real good high school athlete, it's a different conversation. But if you have a parent or a coach sitting here going, all right, Rob Oshinskie, what are the 3 things that I can do the quickest? Like, what are the 3 secrets? What are the 3 things that I could do today to supercharge my athlete's performance? Number 1, get a plan together to significantly change their diet over the next 3 to 6 months. A profoundly changed diet will radically improve every aspect of that athlete's performance, to include the way their body is going to respond from that technical training. Number 2, if they're not already, get them involved in a strength program. And people are going to listen to this and go, well, of course you're going to say that. That's what you do. You own a facility. Yeah, but I could talk to you for hours as to why it is critical in almost every sport to develop and to maintain a foundation of success. But I'll share one quick tip, one quick data point. Something like the top 30 sprinters in the world over the last 20 years were able to squat at least twice their body weight. So let's take a big breath and think about that. Your kid needs to get faster because they are a soccer player. Your kid needs to get faster because they're a baseball player. Football, whatever. The fastest people in the world are spending enough time in the gym to get strong enough to squat at least twice their body weight. Twice their body weight. That's a big number.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So how much time are those people investing? The fastest people in the world. Well, if the fastest people in the world are doing it, there's reason to believe that's going to positively affect me. Number 3, prioritize your technical tactical training. So if you're going to take swings today, that should be the first thing you do, and strength training and other things should be second. But I say this with 100% conviction. Most high school athletes over the age of 14 are doing too much. And if they did less, if they focused on going to the gym or going to the pitch or the field and doing really, really high quality work for 30 to 60 minutes versus 2 or 3 or 4 hours, the results will be better. I am unwavering in that conviction, because I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with athletes who have started shooting less, taking fewer swings, but really focusing on like having a plan, and all of a sudden the results are better.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So a couple examples here, because you know who I'm talking about. Ronnie Coleman lifted heavy weight, high volume, and now he can barely walk. Tiger Woods, my favorite athlete of all time, did thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. Well, millions of reps, I'll say. Some examples of a couple guys, particularly Ronnie Coleman. Now, genetic freak, but probably could have had better form. And then Tiger, who his body now he got in a car wreck, which really didn't help him. But you think guys like that could have implemented what you're saying more? I know you don't probably know much about personally what they did, but you know what I mean? Like a couple examples there of guys whose bodies now are breaking down.
So a couple things for anyone in your audience who doesn't know, Ronnie Coleman is, one of the most successful bodybuilders of all time. So Ronnie is a complex reality. First of all, did he have amazing genetics? In certain ways, he absolutely did. We know that he was chemically enhanced, but not everyone's body is going to do what Ronnie's did, no matter what you're taking. So there's a genetic propensity there. Also, Ronnie worked harder than most other people. So there's multiple things to factor in. But what I would recognize with Ronnie Coleman was two things, and you said it: a lot of tremendous weight for a long time, and not always the best form. Number one. Number two, if you look at him at an early age, you see some pretty small joints and stuff. There are some people out there that I swear they're made of iron. I mean, they have really thick, dense joints, and it just seems like these people can't be hurt. I mean, I'm over exaggerating a little bit, but I don't think Ronnie was necessarily one of those. But yet he had the genetic potential. His body was willing to put a ton of muscle mass on. Now, the other thing that I would argue is, and this we probably don't want to go here today, but the spine has a limited shelf life. You can only load the spine so many times axially, so like with a squat, or you're in a hinge pattern like a deadlift. I don't care what anybody tells you. I mean, if you're doing 5 reps, one of those reps is not going to be absolutely perfect. And the experts tell us that there are big changes in compression of the spine once you exceed 300 pounds. So for Ronnie, we have to factor that in. Now with Tiger, hard to say the degree to which the car accident affected him. We also don't know about any other traumatic events that happened with him earlier in life and how they culminated over time. But what I would say is this:
mentally,
Tiger, what's that?
Mentally, you mean?
No, some of the soft tissue experts that I'm friends with, people like Aaron Pavlechko and others, they can intelligently discuss with you the reality that when we have serious injuries, our bodies remember them. And even when we think we are healed, there are often roadmaps, so to speak, in our fascia and in our musculature and even in our neurochemistry and our brains. So we just don't know with Tiger. But what we do know with Tiger was he was an incredibly committed kid at a young age who took large numbers of swings. And any spine specialist will tell you, not only does the spine have a shelf life from a standpoint of how often you can load it, it also has a shelf life on how many times you can rotate with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't want to speculate overly with either one of these guys. I have tremendous respect for the commitment and the achievements of both of them. But relative to your question, I would say there's a high degree of likelihood that if Tiger takes a few less swings over the years, his back might have been better, but you factor in the car accident, so we just don't really know. Ronnie Coleman, if Ronnie, you and I have talked a lot about single leg squatting and single leg movements. I have no question that if Ronnie replaces 30-40% of his back squats throughout the second half of his career with single leg movements and significantly diminishes the load on his spine, that his health is better. Is he a better bodybuilder? I don't know. That's speculation. I've told you this before. I've had many athletes develop significant lower body muscle mass doing single leg movements. In fact, with some of them, they develop better mass with single leg movements than they did with two. So with Ronnie, it's a bit of a speculation, but it's an interesting conversation.
Well, here's another thing too, Rob. You talk about mentality and having fortitude. Some guys that come to mind. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Kobe said it himself before he retired. He said, "My mind's still in it, but my body is not."
Mm-hmm.
Tiger, his mentality, I would say 9 chances out of 10, his mentality is just as strong as it was when he was 21, winning the Masters by 13 strokes, breaking a record. Ronnie Coleman, mentality is still the same, but their body is not. That's what's so heartbreaking about Tiger. His mentality is still there, man, but his body is not. For a couple unfortunate things happened to him physically that sucks, but just the mental fortitude of those guys, that's the thing I think to really take away from what they did is, man, mentally they were just on another level.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're 100% right. And that's where I always go back to with your audience, if you're the parent of an athlete, if you're the coach of an athlete, listen, you can have a great kid, like a really great kid who works hard, is skilled. But the difference between the Michael Jordans, and I would argue even in a lot of cases, I mean, we've trained hundreds of athletes. The kid who's a pretty solid high school athlete and the kid that goes to college, and I'm going to qualify it a little bit. You see it more with higher levels. There's a different mindset. Generally speaking, there's a different level of toughness. Like you take 5 random starters at Penn State, and you take 5 random starters at I don't want to pick on any place, but Juniata College. Those 5 Penn State starters, I'm talking about football. If you spend some time with them, they're just it's not all of them. This is a generalization. I have friends that played Division III college football who are tough as nails, but generally speaking, these are different human beings. I've been around them, and a lot of times you don't even see it until they're in competition or until their back's against the wall. And when their back's against the wall, these are human beings that are capable of doing things that most people on the street just don't understand. Human beings are skilled in a lot of different ways, to include, on a number of occasions you've brought up, wrestling and MMA and stuff. It's the same thing. Where I grew up, and it was a pretty tough place. I grew up with some pretty tough people, and some people can just straight up fight. Like they were born with the ability to defend themselves in ways that others can, and in fact, sometimes they're even better than other people that were trained.
Yeah.
So to your point about the mental side of it is, as you progress in a lot of sports, a lot of times the ability to persevere, the ability to will yourself into a positive mental state is often the defining factor. I know a guy who was an assistant strength coach with the Bulls when Michael Jordan was there, and when you talk to this guy about the way Jordan was at practice, people like the typical person on the street who has a son that's playing high school basketball, and you think it takes this, or you think your kid can do that, and then when you hear stories firsthand of what the greats of the greats were able to do, you start understanding that it's not a knock on your kid, or it's not a knock on the next kid. It's just we're talking about people who are really, really, really special.
Yeah. Yeah. Anthony Donka playing for Penn State right now?
Don't know him personally. I know the name.
Yeah. So recently we showed a picture of him. He was doing this street interview for this media thing, and he's next to this girl who was doing the interviews too. and I don't know how tall she is. She may be 5'6", 5'5", and they're standing next to each other at a picture, and I'm like, oh my goodness, he was massive, and the kid's like 19. I mean, he's like 3 times the size of me, and I'm like, it's insane. Some human beings are just, they're born that way. They're huge. So that's another aspect too. It's like you're just born to be like 6'8", 300 pounds playing the NFL. And some people aren't, but
I played against one in high school. I mean, I played, I may have mentioned this to you at some point, but there was a point in the mid 90s where there were 11 guys from our conference playing in the NFL. Most of them were linemen, and half of those guys I played against directly. But the guy that stands out from a physical stature standpoint and kind of stands out from his ultimate achievements was a guy named Mark Skripanak. We're talking about the fall of 80. When I played against him, it was the fall of 86, fall of 1986. This dude was 6'8", 310 pounds. He was the starting center on a state championship basketball team. He was a starting first baseman and all-conference baseball player. And it's funny. One of the guys on my staff was brought this up to me the other day, and we got talking about it because we're talking about Gable Steveson and Greg Kirkliat's match last weekend, and how, to put it in perspective, Greg Kirkliat is considered by most people to be one of the better heavyweights that we've seen in the NCAA. Two-time national champion. And big and strong, and he was never in the match against Gable. He wasn't. So when I was having this conversation with the guy on my staff the other day, I said to him, I'm like, listen, my junior year of high school, I missed the first 3 games due to an ankle injury, and I was an interior guy and ended up with 13 sacks. And I mean, we played Harrisburg, we played Williamsport, we played Berwick. We weren't playing a cupcake schedule. So my point to him was, hey, like, I was pretty good at getting to the quarterback.
Yeah.
But when we played Wilkes-Barre GAR in a preseason game, and I played Greg Skripanak, the guy I just referred to, when I tell you he shut me down, I mean, it was embarrassing. I didn't sniff the quarterback. So my point is, like, when you start thinking that this guy who's playing at Penn State is just a little better than my son, you might have to qualify that, because I'm telling you, some of these people they're fringe of the species. They're not like anybody you went to high school with.
Yeah.
I mean, if they are, exactly. maybe one.
Yeah, we've said this before on here. I said, we talk about Penn State football, one of the blue blood programs, best programs of all time. The best football players in the country are coming to Penn State. Not all of them, but we're up there for sure. Think of I said, think about go back to high school whenever you were there. Who was the best athlete in your high school? And you're just like, that guy or that girl is like unreal. And I said, ask yourself this question. Did they play D1 sports? First of all, did they play D1 sports? Probably Absolutely. Not. Yep. And if they did, were they good? So yeah, you have those guys that, like Micah Parsons, Ray Lewis in high school, you see them, you're like, holy crap, dude, that they're going to be a pro in something. They just look so. Myles Garrett, saw a picture of him recently. He's not even close to his teammates in the sense that he was just so much bigger and stuff like that. But you just know that they're different in a good way for sure.
Yeah, when your high school athlete if they are competing against high level competition, so whether it's on a travel team or Warren State College. State College High School competes in the Mid-Penn. It is a very, very good conference. If your kid is dominating in a conference like that, now we have a serious conversation. But one of the things that we always caution our parents and kids that are at smaller high schools, you don't have to just be good at those lower levels.
Yeah.
You have to be absolutely dominant. And some people listening to this may think I'm overstating, but I'll give you just one example of what I'm talking about. Southern Columbia High School is I don't think you can argue this very well, but over the last 30 years, the best high school football program in the state. Actually, over the last 35 years, they've won something like 30 or 32 district titles in that period of time. They've won like a dozen state championships in football. Now, this is a really amazing statistic. They have 4 guys. Let me make sure I'm right with this. Yeah, they have 4 guys that have rushed for over 7,000 yards in high school.
Wow.
One of them played at Bloomsburg. One of them played at Pitt. One of them went to Michigan but ended up at Lehigh. And the other played at Bucknell.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, how much more do I have to say? Like, these guys were 7,000 yards. I mean, you're talking 4 seasons at nearly $2,000 a pop. I mean, that's an amazing high school career. And I'll tell you a little story because I know you like to thread the Penn State angle in with this. As you know, I was an assistant strength coach at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
And the year I was there, we had Curtis Enos, 6'2", 250 pounds on peak weeks. And what I mean by that is there were some weeks where he felt he was going to be more effective being bigger. And you talk about an amazing body. And then there were other weeks he was 230. Like, he would literally go, okay, 2 weeks from now, I need to be lighter. And he would drop 15 or 20 pounds. It was insane. But either way, at 230 or 250, Curtis was a 4.4 40 guy, as was Aaron Harris, our other back, our fullback, who was, I mean, within our system, he was really as much a tailback as he was anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So during this time, during the fall I was there, Southern Columbia had one of these great running backs, kid that had over 7,000 yards. He was a dominant high school player. I came home before the bowl game, and literally, not once, not twice, numerous times, I had people from Southern Columbia come up to me on the street, come up to me at a breakfast shop, and give me a pretty hard time about why we weren't offering this kid. And I'm like, listen, with all due respect, this kid is 5'10". He's 190, 195 pounds. He runs a 4.7 40.
Yeah.
We're not even comparing apples to oranges. Like, there was that big of a difference. And here was the difference. He's the one who went to Bucknell. They moved him to D-back once he got there.
Mm-hmm.
He was a 2-year starter at D-back. But these people, could not believe that we had the audacity to not offer him a scholarship to be a running back at Penn State. And just as good as he was, when you're talking a Penn State running back, you're talking about Penn State linebacker. To your point, you're talking about, in all likelihood, the best kid at that position that's ever played at your high school. Maybe the best kid that's ever played in your conference.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Rob, we're going to finish up here soon. Talk about RFK a little bit, but I played they called it semi-pro. It was like 8-on-8 locally here, and there was a lot of good players in that league. Like, at the time, I was like 6'1", 220, and I played corner. So just goes to show you how big some of the linemen and linebackers were. And I played against a kid. I played against a kid who played in the NFL. I don't remember his name or anything, but I went to tackle him, and I went too high. He put the crown of his helmet in my chest. And when I say it was the hardest hit I ever took, I didn't even know what hard hitting was until that kid hit me. And I played, at high school and junior high and tried out at Penn State and everything. I couldn't lift my arms the rest of the game. I was just a sitting duck at corner. And luckily they didn't throw it over to my side. But when I say like this kid hit me hard, like my life flashed before my eyes. Like that's how hard this kid hit me. And that's NFL. It's insane. Like the difference. And then I played with, he was a gym owner here locally, Powertrain, played for the Eagles. There's a picture in the gym of him sacking Big Ben. This guy was retired for a few years. I played flag with him. And when I say he was fast, like a blink of an eye, this dude, I saw this one play, I was playing linebacker. I was right behind him. He's playing D tackle. When I say in the blink of an eye, he went from being down on the ground to having the flag in his hand. And I'm like, this is unreal. So there's such a difference in, professional and non-professional. It's insane. In the NFL, it's so fast, man.
Go ahead.
I was saying the NFL is so fast.
Yeah, so I used to work with a linebacker named Aaron Collins from Penn State. And I can remember doing one-on-one drills with him. And he should have, but didn't even make it to the NFL. And the speed was just it was just amazing. But the reason why I was smiling earlier is I kind of have a flag story. And this is in no way me bragging. Like, believe me, no way me bragging. But I played in probably the same league. It was State College League. And we had a number of guys that were former college players on our team. And I played defensive end. And the one week we were playing a local team, they break the huddle, and there's a guy standing across from me. He's every bit of 6'3", may have been 6'4". He was every bit of 290, may have been 300. And he's just he's snorting at me and like trying to intimidate me, So for me, it's kind of funny on a couple levels. First of all, coming where I come from, don't intimidate real easy. Number two, I played in college, and his size, I didn't really care. But the big part of the story was I'm 37, 38 years old. Like, I am literally the oldest guy in the league at this point.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. Yeah.
And the first play, I just okay, I'm gonna have a little fun with this dude. I line up a little bit inside. I just ran around him and sacked the quarterback. And I'm not going to repeat what he was saying to me, but he was not happy. Next play, I fake him inside, swim him outside, sack the quarterback again, and he's saying the same stuff. And man, I just looked at him. I'm like, listen, bro, you better get used to it because this is going to go on all day long. And he didn't like it. I'm surprised, it didn't escalate beyond that. But my point is simply this: was he probably a big, good high school football player? He was, and that's great. It's great. But you have to understand, it doesn't matter whether it's Rob Oshinskie at Bucknell or it's whoever at Penn State, or it's, to be honest with you, whoever at a Susquehanna or a Lycoming or something. If these guys went and played in college, there's a difference. I played flag football in my 20s in my hometown, and there was a kid that played at Susquehanna. I mean, he was the toughest guy I went up against that entire season. So, but he played in college. And that's what people have to understand is if you're good enough to play in college, you were probably pretty exceptional in high school, and you kept developing.
Yeah. That's the thing, keeping it going. Okay, so one quick thing. We'll get into RFK and then we'll jump off here, Rob. I don't want to keep you for too long. So I've mentioned my cousin to you before. I think he's like 15 now. He's about 6 foot 6'1", 180 pounds. He ran a 4.4 at the Penn State camp this past summer.
Wow.
Okay, so the kid's a freak. Genetically, he's a freak, and if you see him, like he sticks out for sure. What would be your advice for someone like that who the kid's got so much potential? He's a great athlete. Like, what would be your advice for someone like that?
Well, for me, it would start off with looking at his injury history. Number two would be, okay, what do you really want to achieve? Because that's going to be the driving force. That's going to be, his goals are going to be the steam in the machine. Number three, and this may be one of the biggest ones for everyone watching or listening here. There is no tomorrow. Like, if his dream is to be a Division I athlete, and this is one of the things that catches high school athletes all the time. There's this, Dad may have this mentality that Johnny was the best kid in our little league growing up. So if we just keep slowly doing the things we got to do, Johnny's going to have Division I offers flowing in. And then the reality hits that, recruiting for high school baseball really starts to really get in a full swing when kids are freshmen and sophomores. And if you're not on the radar or offered as a sophomore, you're gonna have a tough road to, you probably have to go JUCO or whatever to get to a Division I level.
Yeah.
So with your cousin, my suggestion would be, he's got to get into the mentality that there is no tomorrow. There's no, my diet will be better next year. No, your diet has to be a little bit better next week. And it's got to be a little bit better a month from now. It's got to be a little bit better a month from now. We recently had a pretty good high school football player come into Victory. During his assessment, he wants to be a Division I player. He tells me he is willing to do whatever it takes. And his dad says, well, you got to talk to him about his diet. What's wrong with your diet? Well, I don't like fruits or vegetables. Like, you don't like a lot of them, or you don't like them. I don't like them. Like, doesn't eat any, but he'll do whatever it takes. So you got to be careful what comes out of your mouth, because do whatever it takes is that. It's do whatever it takes. Like, do whatever it takes means I'm gonna get 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. Do whatever it takes means my cell phone is not going to be in the bedroom. Do whatever it takes is I'm going to eat breakfast every single day. Protein's going to be a priority. I'm going to consume essential fats in numerous sources. I'm going to strength train 12 months a year. And any opportunity I have to do speed development with anybody who knows what they're doing, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So, that's the whatever it takes.
Well, you got me on essential fatty acids. You were saying that was one thing Nate Stupar needed when you were training him. Penn State and NFL guy. Raw honey, he got me on that too. When I took your bodybuilding class. So that's one thing that a lot of people miss is the essential fatty acids. That's one thing that a lot of people miss, like you had mentioned in that.
Yeah, it's huge. It's big, big, big.
So thanks for that, Rob. And then RFK. So RFK, he's health secretary. This is a very awesome time for a lot of people in terms of what's happened recently with the new administration, who Trump's bringing in. What are your thoughts on what he's doing? One thing that I've really personally kept an eye on recently is high fructose corn syrup, keeping that out of my diet. Dave Palumbo said that. And from what I've heard, that's one thing RFK is going to attack is high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah. Man, where do I even start with this? Listen, big picture. I want my fellow Americans to be healthier.
Yeah.
I want people to be in less pain. As I think we have faced some challenging deaths in our family. Cancer took my grandfather. One of my grandfathers, it took my dad. A year ago, it took one of my very best friends. It is a disease that really hits home for me. High fructose corn syrup is a carcinogen. So is Roundup. So is glyphosate, which is the primary ingredient in Roundup. So for anybody listening here, you got to stop spraying Roundup. I mean, like, pick the weeds or let them grow, or find a natural alternative. But you're poisoning yourself, you're poisoning your pets, you're poisoning your neighbors. Period. End of discussion. There's class action lawsuit after class action lawsuit because glyphosate is a problem. And then, oh, by the way, that corn that you're eating, I'm gonna ruffle some feathers here, but facts are the facts. Most of that corn that you're eating is being grown in fields. They're being sprayed with glyphosate multiple times a year. My wife and I do not eat corn. Don't eat it. Or products that have corn in. But relative to RFK, I think you have a situation where you have a really intelligent guy. I know some of his views are controversial, but I think some of those views, if people actually, once again, if they actually did their homework, they would realize that there's reason for caution. There's reason for concern. You know, people love to point the finger at, like right now. Let's be honest. One of the reasons why people hate Elon Musk is because they're jealous of his wealth. Like, I'm sorry, but that is, listen to the arguments, and his wealth is always brought up. His wealth should have very little bearing on the conversation. If his policies and actions are the problem, then his wealth should be irrelevant. But we bring it up because we're jealous of his success. That's the reality. RFK, I think he's a very well-informed man who is bringing some very concerning issues to the forefront. And I think if he is in office throughout the course of this administration, we are going to be a healthier society, and a lot of people are going to thank him. They may not understand. They may not like the message right now, but they're going to be thankful. And I think that the thing I find confusing is many of the people that are attacking him are the same people that are really concerned about their own health and know that much of what he's saying is absolutely, positively valid. You know, it doesn't mean that we throw out measles vaccines. It doesn't mean that we throw out the polio vaccine. But all I'm going to say is, just like with COVID, there is more to the story.
Yeah.
If you think all that, listen, if you're not aware of this, you want to talk about being underinformed. You know, the current vaccination schedule for infants in the United States includes like 70 shots or 70 different vaccines. It's some outrageous number. Like, you have to seriously ask yourself why. And the deeper you dig into the pharmaceutical industry, the evidence is right in front of you. And I'll kind of share this because I think some of your listeners may need to hear this. A couple of years ago, I'm at the wedding of one of my athletes. As fate may have it, I'm sitting across the table from a woman who's a 24-year veteran of a pharmaceutical company that, if I said the name, everyone listening now would know it. So 24 years, imagine what her salary was. She was an executive. She was walking away from her job because ethically she could be no longer involved in what was going on, and COVID was the thing that pushed her over the top. So you can you can look at that however you want to. I'm telling you a factual story. I looked into this woman's eyes and I listened to her stories for 2 hours. And this is why I encourage everyone that comes on your show, don't just listen to people on TV or even on a podcast who you've never met before. Go out and have conversations and gain perspectives. And I think the more you do, the more you're going to realize the need for this. And I think RFK, I hope, I'm optimistic that he's going to do some things that are going to impact the health of everyone listening to the show.
Yeah. I'm not going to dive into it too much, but like the political atmosphere, an example is, here's a guy, Donald Trump, who had no experience in politics. And the first time he runs, he gets the highest office in the world. That goes to show you just how much of a joke a lot of politics are, because this guy just came in out of nowhere and won, was very successful. And then you have a guy like RFK, who, first of all, his family's been through a lot. He has a personal testimonial with a vaccine, which makes his voice the way it is. He had a bad vaccine, bad side effect to a vaccine. And then you have a guy like Elon Musk, who it's like, oh, he has all this money. Like you said, he's evil because he has all this money. It's like, why do you think he has all this money? Because he worked his butt off. So the thing is with Trump, first of all, I think a lot of the reason that a lot of the whacked out media goes after him is because people don't want to be held responsible. Trump will hold you responsible for a lot of stuff. He has to be responsible to be who he is. I think that's a lot of the things that people hate him for and they're scared of, because he's a responsibility guy. He's going to hold you responsible. You're not going to get a handout, this and that. RFK is going to hold people responsible for our horrible diets in this country. Elon Musk is going to hold the government responsible for all the horrible spending that they do. It's just responsibility. People don't want to take responsibility. They just want to coast through life, like we talked about earlier. It's responsibility. That's what it's coming down to, taking responsibility for poor decisions. And that's what this administration is going to do. And that's what RFK is going to do. And I really hope that he cuts out high fructose corn syrup and stuff like the corn. Because, man, the obesity is a huge issue in this country. And a lot of it comes from high fructose corn syrup. It's a sweetener, and it shouldn't be in our food. It's insane.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the whole responsibility thing is really spot on. I mean, unfortunately, and I don't know where this has come from, but there's a lot of people that want everyone else to do things for them in some manner. I've told you this before. Trump is not my savior, nor is RFK or anybody that's in politics. I am cautiously optimistic about things that are going on right now. I am definitely wait and see. I know nothing. I cannot speak intelligently about tariffs. I'm hoping they're a good decision. I can speak pretty intelligently about health and health-related issues, and I really do think RFK is going to be an asset. But at the end of the day, your health is your responsibility. And I'm going to share a story as we're moving our way off here. Over the years, there has been no less than a half dozen elderly people at Victory who were taking a blood thinner named Coumadin. Another version of it is warfarin. It's really bad stuff. Like, have a private conversation with a pharmacist and say, tell me about Coumadin. I've had that conversation. I'm not going to tell you what they've said because I think you need to have it. But I've had that conversation, and it's It's disturbing. But there are people out there with heart conditions that need some form of blood thinner. Well, on a number of different occasions, I have asked people, does your doctor think you still need to be on Coumadin or warfarin? And in virtually every case, people say, I don't know. I didn't ask. It's your body. Folks, listen. Everybody listening to this right now, answer this simple question. Again, a little bit of logic goes a long way. When you watch a pharmaceutical commercial, do they spend more time telling you about the benefits or more time telling you about the hazards? We all know that. We all know. You get 10 seconds of the goody-goody, and you get 30 seconds of how it can destroy your health. That should be a big wake-up call. But anyway, in the case of Coumadin, I kid you not, we've had at least half a dozen people over the years go to their doctor, ask the question. The doctor says, we can get you off of that. So here's the punchline. Here's the disturbing part of that whole thing. That person was on a very dangerous drug for 3 or 6 or 12 months longer than they needed to be. So the question is, what were the long-term ramifications for their health? We don't know. It's all speculation. What we do know is they were on longer than they needed to be, in large part because they didn't ask enough questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's your body, folks. It's your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Without your health, you have nothing. That is so important, taking care of yourself and just taking your health seriously. It's like, and I've heard this from professors at Penn State. One guy I had, he was like 70 years old, and this guy could literally put his leg behind his head. He was so flexible. I mean, this guy was crazy in shape. And he said, honestly, guys, he said, my diet's not the best. I drink a little too much sometimes, but you know what I've always done? Exercise. That's the most important aspect. Exercise, get your body right. Obviously health or your diet is important, but man, you just got to exercise. You got to get your body moving. That's what our bodies are meant to do.
Yeah, I can't argue that. As you know, I've done a lot of digging into longevity-related topics and information. And, diet's incredibly important. Sleep is incredibly important. But the truth is, at this point, all the data indicates that if you had to pick one thing, it would be exercise. And honestly, I almost kind of hate saying it because I know all the negative things that can come from a bad diet, but it's also relative to how bad the diet is.
Yeah.
If your diet involves a ton of things like RFK has been speaking out against, with artificial flavors, artificial colors, that's worse than, if you have you're drinking a little too much or everything you eat isn't organic. Diet is definitely a continuum, but exercise is really, if you're going to have a good, long, productive life, being active and exercising there's really no way around it, unless you're just really genetically special, which very, 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 very